I'm any new province, and is this possibly Pauper playable? That's the question I want to answer about Pillage, a mono-red land destruction spell that was downshifted with the release of Masters 25. Pauper Ponza is best known for its mono-black variation with Icequake and Befoul, or the red-green variation that uses Arbor Elf and Utopia Sprawl to ramp into things like Thermokarst or a Kicked Mold Shambler. Mono-red has always had inexpensive land destruction tools. First we have Raise, which only costs 1 mana but also makes you sacrifice a land. Tremble is very similar. It only costs 2 mana, but it also makes you sacrifice your own land. We have to develop a mana base faster than our opponents so that we can close out the game in a hurry before they top deck more lands. That's what makes the downshift of Pillage so interesting. It's the third non-symmetrical land destruction spell printed in red at 3 mana. We saw that 12 land destruction spells at 3 could make mono black land destruction somewhat successful, so let's see if it can help out mono red. I'll start with our Ponza package. First we have Pillage. It costs 1 red and it says destroy target artifact or land. It can't be regenerated. Pretty simple. Blow up one of our opponent's lands, and if we're playing against Affinity, maybe this can snag a Mirror Enforcer. Next we have Molten Rain. It also costs 1 red. It destroys a land, but Molten Rain deals 2 damage to that land's controller if it is non-basic. Finally we have Pour Stone Rain, which really isn't that interesting. It just costs 2 and a red, and it destroys a land. A crucial part of this deck's plan is blowing up our opponent's first land drop. We've included a good amount of acceleration for just that reason. First, we have Rite of Flame, which costs 1 red, it's a sorcery, and it says, add red to your mana pool, then add 1 red to your mana pool for each card named Rite of Flame in each graveyard. It's not necessarily Dark Ritual, but sometimes it does a good impression. The first Rite of Flame that we cast each game probably isn't going to produce enough mana to cast a land destruction spell on its own. That's why we've included Simian Spirit Guides. They cost 2 and a red, they're 2/2s, and they say, exile Simian Spirit Guide from your hand, add red to your mana pool. Getting mana for free is obviously a broken mechanic, and Simian Spirit Guide doubles as another win condition with Monkey Beats. One of the biggest disadvantages of playing a land destruction deck that has a bunch of rituals in it is that your hand empties out fairly quickly, and red doesn't do a very good job of producing card advantage. I went so far out of my way to create card advantage in this deck that I was even considering playing this card, the Sigiled Skink, which costs 1 and a red, it's a 2/1, and it says, whenever Sigiled Skink attacks, scry 1. This lizard is a really cool card, and if it can attack a few times and get a couple of scries, it might eventually amount to 1 extra card in card advantage. The biggest disadvantage to this card is that it can't attack through Augur of Bolas, and Delver is one of our worst matchups. I quickly realized that mono red was not good at producing raw card advantage off the top of your library, but it can produce extra value through the graveyard. That's why I've included 3 Ice Falls. They cost 2 red, and they say destroy target artifact or land, making our affinity matchup just a little bit better out of the main board. It also has Recover red. This is the graveyard part. Recover means when a creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay red. If you do, return this card from your graveyard to your hand. Otherwise, exile this card. Icefall happens to synergize with one of the least expensive card filtering spells in red. This is Insolent Neonate. It costs 1 red, it's a 1/1, it has Menace, and it says discard a card, sacrifice Insolent Neonate, draw a card. That means we can pitch our Icefall, then sacrifice our Insolent Neonate, pay a couple more mana, get our Icefall back, and get to look at a new card. The rest of our card filtering is some of red's best. First, we have Tormenting Voice, which costs 1 red, and it says, as an additional cost to cast Tormenting Voice, discard a card, draw 2 cards. We also have Faithless Looting. Faithless Looting costs 1 red, it's a sorcery, and it says, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. It also has Flashback for 2 and a red, which means we can pay 2 and a red, exile this from our graveyard, and cast the spell again. The reason I have 1 more Tormenting Voice over a Faithless Looting is because our hand empties out pretty quickly, and we often won't be able to discard 2 to the Faithless Looting. Our last bit of graveyard synergy comes along with a little bit of interaction. This is Firebolt. It costs 1 red, and it says Firebolt deals 2 damage to target creature or player. You can flash it back for 5 and a red. Firebolt is great because it can often deal with 2 creatures out of Delver or go straight to our opponent's face if we're light on threats. Finally, we have our finisher. This is Avarax. It costs 3 red, it's a beast, and it's a 3/3. It has haste, and its ability is, when Avarax enters the battlefield, you may search your your library for a card named Avarax, reveal it, put it into your hand. If you do, shuffle your library. It also has somewhat expensive fire breathing. It says pay 1 and a red, Avarax gets +1/+0 until end of turn. I like this card because it can win out of nowhere. We produce tons of mana with our Simian Spirit Guides and our Rite of Flames. Also, we can keep tutoring them out of our deck and attacking with them as soon as they hit the board. Okay, let's have a look at this mana base. First, we have 4 Sandstone Needles. They say, Sandstone Needle enters the battlefield tapped with 2 depletion counters on it. When it's untapped, you can tap it, remove a depletion counter from Sandstone Needle, and add red to your mana pool. When there are no depletion counters on Sandstone Needle, sacrifice it. We need this card so that if we're on the play, we can play a Sandstone Needle, then play a mountain, then blow up one of our opponent's lands. Our only other non-basic land is Forgotten Cave. Forgotten Cave enters the battlefield tapped. When it's untapped, it adds a red mana, and you can cycle it for 1 red. This is to help keep those land destruction spells flowing, and I'd love to play more, but we do need these 15 basic mountains so that they can enter the battlefield untapped and blow up our opponent's first land drop with the help of a Sandstone Needle. Alright, let's have a look at our sideboard. First, we have 2 Gorilla Shamans. This should really help secure the Stranglehold on Affinity post-board. It's also good against Boros Monarch because we can take out some of our land destruction for this more efficient piece. We have 2 Pristine Talismans. Against burn, we can take out some of our other accelerations to help fend off the 1 lightning bolt a turn they can cast. We have 2 Dead and Gones. Dead can deal 2 damage to a creature for 1 red mana, or it can bounce a creature back to their hand for 2 and a red. This will bounce our opponent's Gurmag Anglers or kill their Delver of Secrets. Pretty good for those blue-black matchups. We have a Swirling Sandstorm, which is going to sweep the board if our opponent is on all ground creatures. We have an Electrickery if they're on all X ones. We have 2 Relic of Progenitus if our opponent's trying to flash back a bunch of pesky spells, and we have 4 Pyroblasts because our blue matchups are sort of bad, so we have to shore those up. Before I go, I just have to thank everybody. We are so close to 1,000 subscribers. When I set out on this journey, I didn't think that anyone would support my weird jank jamming every week, but it turns out you do. So thank you so much, everybody. If you're not subscribed yet, you can do that by clicking on the subscribe button down below, and while you're there, please consider liking the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this deck tech, and hopefully I'll see you on Tuesday night.